My ex-husband called me heartless after I refused his final dying wish. He abandoned me and our 3 kids for his secretary 8 years ago, never paid child support, and now wants to apologize before he dies from cancer, but I said no. 2 weeks ago, my ex-husband Jackson, 48M, called me through our daughter Melody, 22F, asking for one last conversation before he dies. The same man who walked out on me and our 3 kids 8 years ago for his secretary. The same man who fought me tooth and nail for minimal child support and then disappeared from our lives completely. Now he wants closure. I told Melody no. His family has been calling me nonstop ever since, saying I'm heartless for denying a dying man his final wish. But here's the thing, some bridges burn so completely that not even death can rebuild them. Let me back up and explain how we got here. I, 46F, and Jackson were together for 15 years total. We met in college when I was 20 and he was 22. We dated for 4 years, then got married and had 3 children together, Melody, 22F, Tyler, 20M, and Mia, 18F. For most of our marriage, I thought we had a solid relationship. Jackson worked as an accountant at a mid-sized firm downtown, and I worked part-time as a dental hygienist while raising the kids. We lived in a decent neighborhood, had family barbecues on weekends, and I genuinely believed we were building something good together. Everything started falling apart about 9 years ago when Jackson got promoted to senior partner at his firm. He started working longer hours, coming home later, and becoming distant with me and the kids. At first, I chalked it up to job stress. The promotion meant more responsibility, more clients, more pressure. I tried to be supportive. I took on more household duties, handled most of the kids' activities and school events, and rarely complained when he missed dinner or family time. But then I started noticing other changes. Jackson began paying more attention to his appearance. He bought new clothes, started going to an expensive barbershop instead of the local place he'd used for years, and even joined a gym. When I complimented him or asked about the changes, he would brush me off or say it was important for his professional image. He also became secretive about his phone, taking it everywhere and angling the screen away from me when texting. The breaking point came during Tyler's 12th birthday party. We had planned a big celebration at our house with all his friends and family. Jackson promised he would leave work early to help set up and be there for the whole party. The day of the party, I spent hours decorating, preparing food, and getting everything ready. Tyler kept asking where his dad was, and I kept making excuses and checking my phone for messages. Jackson finally showed up 2 hours late, right as we were cutting the cake. He walked in looking flustered and immediately went to wash his hands, claiming he had been stuck in an important client meeting. But something was off. His shirt was wrinkled in a way that suggested it had been removed and put back on hastily. There was a faint smell of perfume that wasn't mine. And when Tyler ran to hug him, Jackson seemed distracted and kept checking his phone. After the party, when all the guests had left and the kids were in their rooms, I confronted Jackson about his behavior. I asked him directly if something was going on at work or if there was something he needed to tell me. He got defensive immediately, accusing me of being paranoid and controlling. He said the pressure at work was intense and that I should be more understanding instead of questioning him all the time. That's when I started paying closer attention. Over the next few weeks, I noticed that Jackson's stories about work didn't always add up. He would mention having dinner with clients on nights when he came home with no smell of restaurant food. He claimed to be working late on weekends, but when I called his office, no one answered. The final straw came when I found a receipt in his jacket pocket for an expensive restaurant downtown, a place we had never been to together, dated on a night when he claimed to be working late. I decided to do something I never thought I would do. I hired a private investigator. It felt like a betrayal of our marriage, but I needed to know the truth. The investigator followed Jackson for 2 weeks and came back with photographs and detailed reports that shattered my world completely. Jackson was having an affair with his secretary, Angela, 26F. The photos showed them holding hands walking into her apartment building, kissing in his car, and spending hours together at hotels during what were supposed to be his work hours. The investigator had documented at least 15 different occasions over the 2-week period where Jackson met with Angela outside of work. When I confronted Jackson with the evidence, he didn't even try to deny it. Instead, he turned cold and calculating. He told me the marriage had been dead for years and that he had found someone who actually appreciated him. He said Angela understood the pressures of his career in a way that I never could. He packed a bag that same night and moved in with Angela, leaving me to explain to our 3 children why their father was suddenly gone. The divorce process was brutal. Jackson hired an expensive lawyer and fought me on everything. He claimed that since I only worked part-time, I didn't need as much support. He argued that the kids would be better off with him because he could provide better financially. He even tried to get the house sold so that his equity wouldn't be tied up in what he called my lifestyle choices. I had to get a second job working evenings at a medical office just to pay for legal fees. During this time, Jackson rarely saw the kids. He would schedule visits and then cancel at the last minute, usually claiming work emergencies. Melody, who was 14 at the time, started acting out at school. Tyler, who was 12, became withdrawn and his grades dropped significantly. Mia, who was only 10, would cry herself to sleep asking when Daddy was coming home. The final divorce settlement gave me primary custody of all 3 children, with Jackson getting every other weekend visitation. He was ordered to pay child support and half of the children's college expenses. For the first year after the divorce, Jackson maintained some semblance of involvement. He would pick up the kids on his scheduled weekends, though he was often late and would sometimes return them early claiming he had work obligations. But then Angela got pregnant. Jackson suddenly became even less interested in his existing children. His weekend visits became sporadic, and then stopped altogether. When Melody turned 16 and got her driver's license, Jackson told her that if she wanted to see him, she could drive herself to his house. None of the kids took him up on that offer. The child support payments also became irregular. Jackson would be late by weeks, sometimes months. When I would call to ask about the payments, he would claim financial difficulties or promise to catch up soon. I had to go back to court twice to enforce the support order. The second time, the judge threatened Jackson with jail time if he continued to miss payments. 3 years ago, Jackson and Angela moved to another state when she got a job offer there. He informed the kids about the move through a brief text message, saying he would stay in touch and visit when he could. That was the last direct communication any of us had with him until 2 weeks ago. During those 3 years, Jackson missed every birthday, every graduation, every important milestone in his children's lives. Melody graduated high school as valedictorian and received a full scholarship to college. Tyler made varsity football and was recruited by several universities. Mia won the state championship in debate and was accepted to the honors program at the state university. Jackson was present for none of it. Now, back to 2 weeks ago. Melody called me on a Tuesday evening while I was making dinner. She sounded upset and told me she had received a call from someone claiming to be Jackson's sister-in-law, Jennifer, 35F. I had never met Jennifer, but apparently she is Angela's sister who married Jackson's brother David, 50M, sometime after Jackson moved away. Jennifer told Melody that Jackson had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 6 months ago and was now in hospice care. The doctors had given him 2 to 4 weeks to live. Jennifer said that Jackson had been asking about his children and wanted to speak with them before he died. Melody was shaken by the news. Despite everything Jackson had put us through, he was still her father, and the thought of him dying brought up complicated emotions for her. She asked me what she should do, and I told her that the decision was entirely hers. I would support whatever choice she made. Melody decided to call Jackson. The conversation lasted about 20 minutes, and when she hung up, she was crying. She told me that Jackson sounded weak and different, and that he had apologized for not being a better father. He had asked about Tyler and Mia, and wanted to know if they would speak with him too. Most importantly for this story, he had asked Melody to call me and request that I speak with him as well. Melody asked if I would consider calling Jackson. She said he seemed genuinely sorry and that maybe it would bring some closure for everyone. I told Melody I needed time to think about it, but honestly, my mind was already made up. Some wounds are too deep to heal, and some abandonment is too complete to forgive, even in the face of death. I called Tyler and Mia to let them know about their father's condition and Melody's conversation with him. Tyler's reaction was immediate and harsh. He said he had no interest in speaking with Jackson and didn't understand why Melody had even taken the call. Mia was quieter but equally firm. She said she had spent years learning to live without a father, and she wasn't going to let Jackson back into her life now just because he was dying. 2 days later, Melody called me again. She had spoken with Jackson a second time, and he had specifically asked her to request that I call him. According to Melody, Jackson said he needed to apologize to me and that he couldn't die peacefully knowing how badly he had treated me and the children. I told Melody that I understood her desire to help her father, but that I had no interest in speaking with Jackson. The man who walked out on us 8 years ago and abandoned his children was not suddenly going to find redemption on his deathbed. I had spent years rebuilding my life and helping my children heal from his abandonment. I wasn't going to reopen those wounds now. That's when Jackson's family started calling. Jennifer called me first, introducing herself and explaining the family connection. She said that Jackson had asked her to reach out because he was too weak to make the call himself. She told me that he was in a lot of pain and that speaking with me was the only thing he said would give him peace before he died. I politely declined and explained that I had no desire to speak with Jackson. Jennifer became more insistent, saying that surely I could put aside our differences for the sake of a dying man. When I continued to refuse, Jennifer's tone changed. She accused me of being cruel and heartless. She said that whatever had happened between Jackson and me was in the past, and that denying a dying man his final request was vindictive and petty. The calls didn't stop there. Over the next week, I received calls from David, Jackson's brother, and from Angela's parents, who I had never met or spoken to before. Each caller had the same message: Jackson was dying and wanted to apologize to me, and I was being unreasonable by refusing to speak with him. The most difficult call came from Jackson's mother, Patricia, 72F, who I had once been close with during my marriage. Patricia called me crying, begging me to speak with her son before he died. She said that Jackson had made many mistakes but that he was still my children's father, and that I should think about what my refusal would mean to them in the long run. I explained to Patricia that my children were adults who could make their own decisions about their relationship with their father, but that my decision was final. Patricia then said something that made my blood boil. She said that she had always known I was bitter about the divorce, but that she never expected me to be so vindictive as to let a man die without the chance to make amends. That's when I lost my composure. I reminded Patricia that her son had abandoned his children for 8 years, missed every important moment of their lives, and had shown no interest in being a father until he was facing death. I told her that I had spent years helping my children cope with the rejection and abandonment they felt from their father, and that I wasn't going to subject myself to more hurt just so Jackson could feel better about his choices as he died. The situation has been eating at me for 2 weeks now. My children are divided on the issue. Melody thinks I should speak with Jackson, if only to let him apologize. Tyler and Mia support my decision not to call him. Some people think I should take the high road and allow Jackson to apologize, while others support my right to protect myself from further hurt. But here's what I keep coming back to: Jackson had 8 years to apologize. He had 8 years to try to rebuild relationships with his children. He had 8 years to acknowledge the pain he caused when he walked out on our family. He chose not to do any of those things. Now, facing death, he suddenly wants absolution from the people he hurt the most. Jackson will die without hearing from me, and I can live with that decision. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. Update 1: The overwhelming support I received helped me realize that I wasn't being unreasonable in my decision not to speak with Jackson. Your comments and messages gave me the strength to stand firm in my choice, even when the pressure to change my mind continued to mount. Unfortunately, things have gotten significantly more complicated since my last post, and I felt I owed you all an update on what's been happening. About a week after I posted originally, the phone calls from Jackson's family resumed with even more intensity than before. This time, however, they had recruited some unexpected allies in their campaign to convince me to call Jackson. The first surprise came when my own sister Lisa, 44F, called me. Lisa and I have always been close, and she was incredibly supportive during my divorce from Jackson. She helped me with the kids during the worst parts of the legal proceedings and had always been firmly on my side when it came to Jackson's abandonment of our family. But during this call, Lisa took a very different tone. She told me that she had been contacted by Jennifer, Jackson's sister-in-law, who had somehow gotten Lisa's phone number. Jennifer had told Lisa about Jackson's condition and his desire to speak with me before he died. Lisa said that while she understood my anger toward Jackson, she thought I should consider speaking with him for the sake of closure. I was shocked that Lisa would side with Jackson's family on this issue. When I asked her why she had changed her position, she said that Jennifer had painted a picture of Jackson as a genuinely remorseful man who was suffering not just from cancer, but from the guilt of his past actions. Lisa said that Jennifer had convinced her that speaking with Jackson might actually help me heal from the trauma of our divorce. The conversation with Lisa was painful because it felt like a betrayal from someone I had counted on for support. Lisa kept pushing, saying that 10 minutes on the phone with Jackson wouldn't kill me, and that I might actually feel better afterward. When I refused, she accused me of being stubborn and said that she was disappointed in my lack of compassion. But Lisa wasn't the only person from my own life who was contacted by Jackson's family. Over the next few days, I received calls from my former mother-in-law's sister, my old neighbor from the house Jackson and I had shared, and even my former boss from the dental office where I used to work part-time. Each person had been contacted by someone from Jackson's family and given the same story about his regret and desire for reconciliation. The most disturbing call came from my daughter Mia's high school guidance counselor, Mrs. Rodriguez, 55F. Mrs. Rodriguez called to tell me that she had been contacted by someone claiming to be Jackson's current wife, Angela, who had asked her to reach out to me about Jackson's final wishes. According to Mrs. Rodriguez, Angela had told her that Jackson was desperate to make amends with his family and that I was the only thing standing between him and peaceful death. That's when I realized that Jackson's family was conducting what amounted to a harassment campaign. They were systematically contacting people from my past and present, trying to build pressure from multiple angles to force me into calling Jackson. The fact that they had somehow obtained contact information for people like my former boss and Mia's guidance counselor was deeply disturbing. I decided to take action to protect myself and my family from this escalating harassment. I contacted a lawyer to ask about my options for stopping the unwanted contact. The lawyer explained that while the calls themselves might not rise to the level of legal harassment, the systematic nature of the campaign and the involvement of third parties could potentially constitute stalking or harassment under state law. When I told Melody, Tyler, and Mia about the extent of Jackson's family's campaign, their reactions were different than I expected. Melody, who had previously encouraged me to speak with Jackson, was horrified that his family was contacting people from our past. She said she had no idea they were conducting such an extensive campaign and that it made her question Jackson's sincerity about wanting to apologize. Tyler was furious. He said that Jackson's family's behavior proved that nothing had changed. They were still trying to manipulate and control the situation just like Jackson had tried to control our family during the marriage. Tyler said he was now even more convinced that I shouldn't speak with Jackson. Mia had the strongest reaction of all. She told me that Mrs. Rodriguez's call had made her feel violated and unsafe. Mia said that knowing Jackson's family was contacting people from her school made her worry about what other boundaries they might cross. She asked me to take legal action to stop the harassment. The harassment campaign had an effect I don't think Jackson's family intended. It united my children completely in support of my decision not to speak with Jackson. Even Melody, who had initially wanted me to take his call, now understood why I felt the way I did about him and his family. But the story doesn't end there. 3 days ago, I received a call that changed everything again. The caller identified himself as Dr. Peterson, 60M, and said he was Jackson's oncologist at the hospital where Jackson was receiving hospice care. Dr. Peterson said he was calling because Jackson had asked him to reach out to me directly. According to Dr. Peterson, Jackson's condition had deteriorated rapidly over the past week, and he likely had only a few days left to live. Dr. Peterson said that Jackson was in significant physical pain, but that his emotional distress seemed to be even worse. Jackson had apparently told Dr. Peterson that his greatest regret was the way he had treated his family, and that he couldn't find peace knowing that I refused to speak with him. Dr. Peterson was careful to say that he wasn't trying to pressure me into doing anything I didn't want to do, but that he felt obligated to pass along Jackson's message. He said that in his 30 years of practice, he had seen many patients struggle with unresolved relationships at the end of life, and that sometimes a brief conversation could provide closure for everyone involved. The call from Dr. Peterson was different from all the others because it came from a medical professional who had no personal investment in the situation. Dr. Peterson seemed genuinely concerned about Jackson's well-being, and he presented the information in a clinical, non-judgmental way. After I hung up with Dr. Peterson, I found myself reconsidering my position for the first time since this whole situation began. Not because I felt sorry for Jackson, but because I started to wonder if I was inadvertently causing myself more stress by maintaining my refusal than I would experience by just taking the call and getting it over with. But when I talked to Tyler and Mia about Dr. Peterson's call, they had a very different reaction. Tyler pointed out that Jackson's family had been contacting people throughout my life to pressure me, and that it was entirely possible they had convinced Dr. Peterson to call me as well. Tyler said that even if Dr. Peterson was acting independently, it didn't change the fact that Jackson had 8 years to apologize and had chosen not to until he was dying. Mia was even more direct. She said that Jackson's physical and emotional pain was not my responsibility, and that I shouldn't feel guilty about his inability to find peace. She reminded me that Jackson had never seemed concerned about the emotional pain he caused me and the children when he abandoned us, so there was no reason I should prioritize his emotional well-being now. After thinking about it for 2 days, I decided to maintain my original position. I called Dr. Peterson back and thanked him for his call, but explained that I had made my decision and would not be speaking with Jackson. Dr. Peterson was respectful of my choice and said he understood that the situation was complicated. Dr. Peterson did ask if I would be willing to consider writing a letter to Jackson instead of speaking with him directly. He said that sometimes written communication felt safer for people in my situation, and that it might allow me to say whatever I needed to say without the pressure of a real-time conversation. I told Dr. Peterson I would think about the letter option, but honestly, I don't think I will write one. Jackson gave up the right to my words, whether spoken or written, when he walked out on our family and stayed away for 8 years. The harassment from Jackson's family has mostly stopped since Dr. Peterson's call, which makes me suspect that Tyler was right about them being behind the doctor's outreach as well. Melody has stopped asking me to reconsider speaking with Jackson, and she's been more supportive of my decision since learning about the harassment campaign. So that's where things stand now. Jackson is apparently very close to death, and I've maintained my refusal to speak with him despite pressure from his family, some people in my own life, and even his doctor. I don't know if I'll feel differently about this decision after Jackson dies, but right now, I can live with my choice. Update 2: Jackson died 6 days ago. I thought I should update everyone who followed my story about what happened in his final days and how things have unfolded since his death. 2 weeks after my last update, Melody received another call from Jennifer, Jackson's sister-in-law. This time, Jennifer's message was different. Instead of trying to convince Melody to pressure me into calling Jackson, Jennifer was calling to let us know that Jackson's condition had stabilized somewhat and that doctors thought he might have a few more weeks than originally expected. Jennifer also told Melody something that surprised all of us. Apparently, Jackson had stopped asking his family to contact me about speaking with him. According to Jennifer, Jackson had told them that he understood my position and didn't want them to keep pressuring me. Jennifer said Jackson seemed to have found some peace with the situation and was focusing on spending time with Angela and her family. For 2 weeks, things were quiet. No more calls from Jackson's family, no more pressure from people in my own life, no more contact from doctors or hospital staff. It was a relief to have the constant stress of unwanted phone calls removed from my daily life. Then, last Monday, Melody called me with news that Jackson had taken a turn for the worse over the weekend. He had been rushed to the hospital on Saturday night and was now unconscious. The doctors said it would likely be a matter of days, possibly hours. Melody asked if she could go see Jackson before he died. She said that despite everything he had done, she needed to say goodbye to her father in person. I told Melody that she was an adult and could make her own decisions about her relationship with Jackson. I also told her that I would support whatever choice she made, even if it was different from the choice I had made for myself. Tyler and Mia both decided they did not want to see Jackson before he died. Tyler said he had already said his goodbye to Jackson years ago when Jackson stopped being a real father to him. Mia said she had no desire to see someone who was essentially a stranger to her, even if that person was technically her biological father. Melody drove to the hospital where Jackson was being treated. It's about a 4-hour drive from where we live to where Jackson had been living with Angela. Melody stayed there for 2 days, spending time at Jackson's bedside even though he was unconscious most of the time. When Melody returned home, she told me about her experience at the hospital. She said that seeing Jackson so sick and frail had been harder than she expected. The strong, controlling man she remembered from her childhood was gone, replaced by someone who looked fragile and vulnerable. Melody also told me about her interactions with Jackson's current family. She said Angela had been polite but distant, clearly uncomfortable with Melody's presence. Angela's children from her previous relationship, who would be Jackson's stepchildren, seemed confused about who Melody was and why she was there. The most difficult part for Melody was dealing with Jackson's extended family, including Jennifer and David. According to Melody, they were friendly to her face, but she overheard several conversations where they criticized me for not coming to see Jackson before he died. Melody said she had to bite her tongue several times to avoid defending my decision, because she didn't want to create conflict during such a difficult time. On Wednesday afternoon, Melody called me from the hospital to tell me that Jackson had woken up and was lucid for the first time in several days. She said he had asked about Tyler and Mia, and when she told him they weren't coming, he had nodded and said he understood. Then Jackson had asked Melody if there was any chance I might change my mind about speaking with him. Melody told Jackson that she didn't think I would change my mind, and that he should focus on the people who were there with him rather than the people who weren't. She said Jackson had accepted this answer and hadn't brought up the subject again during the rest of her visit. Jackson died early Friday morning while Melody was sleeping in the waiting room. Angela woke Melody up to tell her that Jackson had passed peacefully in his sleep. Melody said her final goodbye to Jackson and then drove home, arriving Friday evening exhausted and emotionally drained. The funeral arrangements have been a source of tension. Angela is planning a service in the city where they lived, which makes sense since that's where Jackson's current life and relationships were centered. However, Jackson's extended family, particularly his mother Patricia, has been pushing for a second memorial service in our hometown where Jackson grew up and where most of his family still lives. Patricia called Melody directly to discuss the potential memorial service. During that conversation, Patricia made it clear that she hoped I would attend the local memorial, since I wouldn't be going to the main funeral. Patricia told Melody that it would mean a lot to Jackson's family to have me there, and that it might help with healing for everyone involved. Melody relayed Patricia's request to me, but made it clear that she wasn't pressuring me to attend either service. Melody said she planned to attend the main funeral to support Angela and to have closure for herself, but that she understood if I chose not to participate in any memorial activities for Jackson. Tyler and Mia both said they had no interest in attending any service for Jackson. Tyler said he didn't want to be a hypocrite by pretending to mourn someone he had written off years ago. Mia said she preferred to remember the good times she had with Jackson when she was very young, rather than subjecting herself to the complicated emotions that would come with a funeral. Yesterday, I received a call from David, Jackson's brother, about Jackson's personal effects. Apparently, Jackson had left instructions that some of his belongings should be given to Melody, Tyler, and Mia. David said there weren't many valuable items, but there were some family photos, a few pieces of jewelry that had belonged to Jackson's grandparents, and some books and personal items that Jackson thought the kids might want. David also mentioned that Jackson had written letters to each of his children, to be given to them after his death. David said he didn't know what the letters contained, but that Jackson had spent time working on them during his final weeks. David asked if I wanted him to mail the letters and personal effects, or if I preferred to pick them up in person. I told David that I would discuss the matter with my children and get back to him. When I talked to Melody, Tyler, and Mia about Jackson's letters and personal effects, their reactions were mixed. Melody said she definitely wanted to receive her letter and see what personal items Jackson had left for her. Tyler was more hesitant but said he was curious about what Jackson might have said. Mia surprised me by saying she wanted to receive her letter and personal items as well. I told David that the children wanted to receive their letters and personal effects, and arranged for him to mail everything to my house. The package arrived yesterday, and I gave each child their respective items without looking at them myself. Melody opened her letter immediately and spent about an hour reading it. When she finished, she was crying but seemed to have found some peace with whatever Jackson had written. Melody said that Jackson had apologized for not being a better father and had expressed pride in the woman she had become. Tyler took his letter to his room but hasn't told me whether he's read it yet. Mia put her letter in her desk drawer and said she wasn't ready to read it right now, but that she was glad to have it when she felt prepared to handle whatever emotions it might bring up. As for attending any memorial service, I've decided that I will not be participating. While I understand that Jackson's family is grieving and might find comfort in my presence, I need to prioritize my own emotional well-being and the peace I've worked so hard to build in my life. Jackson's death hasn't changed my feelings about the choices he made during his life. I'm not glad that he died, and I wouldn't wish cancer on anyone, but his death doesn't erase the years of abandonment and pain he caused. Final update: I wanted to provide one last update to close out this chapter of my life and address some of the questions people have been asking me. Jackson's funeral took place last week. Melody attended as she had planned, and she said it was a small service with mostly Angela's family and a few of Jackson's co-workers. According to Melody, Jackson's extended family was disappointed by the low turnout, but Angela had wanted to keep things simple and private. The memorial service that Patricia had been pushing for in our hometown never happened. Apparently, there wasn't enough interest from Jackson's old friends and extended family to justify organizing a separate event. Patricia called Melody one more time to express her disappointment that I hadn't attended Jackson's funeral, but Melody told her that everyone needed to respect the choices that had been made and move forward. Tyler finally read his letter from Jackson 3 days ago. He came to me afterward and said that while Jackson had apologized and expressed regret for his absence from Tyler's life, the letter felt too little, too late. Tyler said he appreciated having some closure, but that it didn't change his overall opinion of Jackson as a father. Tyler has decided to keep the letter but said he probably won't read it again. Mia is still holding on to her letter without reading it. She told me yesterday that she's not sure she ever wants to read it, and that she's comfortable with that decision. Mia said that knowing the letter exists is enough for her right now, and that maybe someday she'll be curious enough to open it, or maybe she won't. The most significant development since Jackson's death has been the change in my relationship with my sister Lisa. The fact that she sided with Jackson's family during his final weeks has created a rift between us that I'm not sure can be repaired. Lisa has called me twice since Jackson died, both times to say that she thinks I made a mistake by not speaking with him and that I might regret it later. I finally told Lisa that I needed some space from her and that her continued criticism of my decision was damaging our relationship. Lisa said she was only trying to help me process my grief, but I explained that I wasn't grieving Jackson in the way she expected me to, and that her inability to accept my choice was hurtful. We haven't spoken in over a week now, and I'm not sure when or if we will again. It's painful to lose a relationship with my sister over this, but I've learned that I can't maintain connections with people who refuse to respect my boundaries, even when those people are family. Melody has been the most affected by Jackson's death, which I expected. She's been quiet and reflective, and I can tell she's processing complicated emotions about having a relationship with a father who was largely absent from her life. Melody told me that she's glad she went to see Jackson before he died, but that she also understands why Tyler, Mia, and I made different choices. One thing Melody said really stuck with me. She told me that seeing how Jackson's family treated me during his final weeks helped her understand why I had been so adamant about protecting myself from further hurt. Melody said that their harassment campaign showed her that they cared more about what they thought Jackson needed than about respecting my autonomy and well-being. Tyler and Mia have both moved on from Jackson's death remarkably quickly, which I think speaks to how completely they had already processed his absence from their lives. Tyler is focused on his final year of college and his plans after graduation. Mia is thriving in her first year of college and has thrown herself into her studies and extracurricular activities. As for me, I feel a sense of closure that I didn't expect. Not because Jackson died, but because the whole experience reinforced my conviction that I made the right choice in refusing to speak with him. The harassment campaign, the manipulation of people in my life, and the continued attempts to control the situation even in his final weeks all reminded me of why I divorced Jackson in the first place. I don't regret my decision not to speak with Jackson before he died. I don't regret refusing to attend his funeral. I don't regret protecting myself and my children from further manipulation and hurt. Some people will always think I was too harsh or unforgiving, but those people weren't the ones who lived through Jackson's abandonment and betrayal. The experience has taught me that we have the right to protect ourselves from people who have caused us harm, regardless of the circumstances they find themselves in later. Dying doesn't automatically make someone deserving of forgiveness, and forgiveness doesn't require subjecting yourself to further pain. Jackson lived his life making choices that prioritized his own immediate desires over the well-being of his family. In his final weeks, his family continued that pattern by prioritizing what they thought he needed over my right to maintain boundaries and protect myself. I refuse to participate in that dynamic, and I'm at peace with that decision. My children and I have built a good life together despite Jackson's abandonment. We've supported each other through difficult times, celebrated each other's achievements, and created the kind of stable, loving family environment that Jackson chose to walk away from. His death doesn't change any of that, and it doesn't diminish what we've accomplished together. I'm closing this chapter of my life now and moving forward. Thank you to everyone who supported my decision and helped me feel confident in my choice to prioritize my own well-being. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to maintain your boundaries, even when other people don't understand or approve of them.